Is the might of the might be mighty? Hello everyone, welcome to another episode. When I normally give these talks, I zoom in on an aspect of reality, and in some sense I journey through its own meaning in accordance to my own memories. In this episode, I thought about talking about a dimension of my perception which I have not focused on talking about that much in other episodes. That means in other episodes people may have seen the effect of this concept, but its causal position or how it even relates to the human idea, I'm going to dive into it here. And keep in mind, if you're a new listener, I'm just one person out of 8 billion in a universe of, endless countless stars. I mean, everything is for the greater efforts of the species, really. So when it comes to the concept of might, I look at it through an impersonal angle and a personal angle. When I say personal, I try to perceive it how I have been exposed to the idea, or how I have seen what I call like true might, or someone who was mighty. It's like more than wealth in this world, sometimes the greatest privilege is to witness character. That means a child opens its eyes in a world and characteristics are perceived. Characters arise, just like thoughts come and go. People enter our lives and leave. And so in the presence of a changing world, understanding arises. I'm going to read for you the impersonal view on the concept of might. The word mighty. So the dictionary says possessing great and impressive power of strength, especially an account of size. Performed with or requiring great strength. I would say that if the human psychology of, let's say, a child growing on this earth, it begins to categorize reality, and it begins looking at characters in the world having different levels of expressionism and different intensities. I remember there's this epic Persian poetic work, which you can say Persian culture's mythology is embedded in. It's this poetry book by Ferdowsi called Shahnameh, which is another way of saying it's the Book of Kings. That's the name of it, something like that. Now, in this poetry book, there's so many incredible examples, and even I need to brush up on it, but I'll say to you that there was an imagery of it that in my youth I was introduced to, which then the concept of might began reaching more for an infinite archetype rather than a finite. You can say in the stories of Persian mythology, or in its coded poetry, there is this figure called Rostam, and Rostam can be seen as a divine warrior. That means imagine there was a divine priest, now imagine there was a divine warrior, and this warrior was so mighty that he was undefeated. That means no person could go into combat with him and defeat him. He was pretty much the strongest, greatest warrior in the land. This warrior has a son, and marks some emblem on the sun, or I think in the story he gives like a band or something and tells the wife, tell your son never to take this off. And so this warrior goes to battle never knowing what happened to his child, and years have gone by and reality has like snow, fallen on the surface of this man's life. And so Rostam, one day, and he has many people who would come and challenge it. This is honestly the nature of reality, that when there is a demonstration of strength must be tested. You see, it's not just being a scientist where you gotta test. You gotta just do experiments on physical reality's consequence. Sometimes human beings test each other's character, and it is important, but it is important as long as it is contributing. So anyways, this divine warrior named Rostam, one day an opponent unlike any other arrives. And this opponent arrives and they go into combat, and there is something about how this warrior that has come to challenge Rostam in the middle of their sword and shield fight, it's like Rostam suddenly noticed there's something, first of all, off about the moment, and there's something different about this warrior, as if the spirit of this warrior outclasses all the warriors he's seen so far. You can say spirit even connected to the notion of inspiration. You see, in every moment, spirit is what moves the moment. As the poet Rumi says, wherever you are, be the soul of that moment. So Rostam is being the soul of his moment, and he's witnessing, as he's in combat with another person, the response of their soul in the moment. And eventually Rostam, this undefeated warrior, in some sense he defeats this opponent that challenged him. And what the last thing he sees in the eyes of this opponent is this hatred. It's this furious hatred. Okay, it's like this fury, this anger-infused intensity. Sorry guys, this was on mute. And I don't know for how long, but to summarize what was missed, I'll say this, that I was sharing the story of Rostam. Long story short, it's this divine warrior. He's undefeated. One day, a warrior, he has a son. He puts this band, like this cloth around his son's bicep or something, and tells the wife to never let the son take it off. Long story short, a divine warrior defeats an opponent that he later on, when it's too late, realizes it was a son. And so in the eyes of the son, there was a fury. Anyways, guys, my apologies. The mute button was on, and I was, sharing. So right now I'm in this strange position where I'm not sure how far the listeners are. Okay, here, let me check. Okay, so guys, I checked the live stream, what was muted out of it. Pretty much it's how I went into detail about the story of Rostam. And the main point was that in the son's eyes, before Rostam knew it was his son Sohrab, he saw fury, you know. Anyways, what can I say? Pretty much the might be of the title is the potential of the species, and the might is the actualization of this potential. You know, the inner realms provides, it's like behind our eyes we're standing in many worlds. As many worlds as the mind can perceive or stabilize. And in front of our eyes we see a singular world. And it is really the awareness of two worlds or two dimensions that originates personality. That means we cannot be a human being if we don't have a subjective dimension to our life. And we cannot be a human being if we don't have an objective dimension. It is the balance, or you can say it is the alignment of the inner and outer life that brings forth the civilized human being, and the evolution of the civilized human being is the advanced human being. And the advanced human being has advanced all fathomable, possible, or coming soon technologies of both the inner realms and the outer realms. You see, human beings are such interesting creatures that there are moments where the meaning is justified by just an emotional maintenance. Really what is going on here from a mystical and, let's say a metaphysical, psychological view is in some sense that there is an unknown attention, and this unknown attention has entered this realm to animate. So believe it or not, the purpose of life is to animate, and some animation artists might hear me and be like, no way, I know it. But what I mean by animate is that there is a force, an intelligent force, and we, through our conscious awakening to the moment, call it life. So you see, it's as if I'm this human being where I'm like, okay, 8 billion creatures on a rock spinning in the middle of nowhere. Now, these creatures each have a relationship with the energy that is the essence of the universal position. You see, it's not that does someone have truth. The question is who can exist and not be truth. Existence of and the presence of consciousness is the precursor to any extraction of meaning from any event. In the subtitle, where I've written conscious fury and unconscious might, to be honest, we can implement and we can just open up an axis, a dualistic axis, and pinpointed center to either the concept of fury or might. What I mean by that is that you can think of, you can look at it as if there is conscious might, unconscious might, and then you can see it as if there is conscious fury and then there's unconscious fury. Unconscious fury, to the human psychology, would be like the wrath of God, or the anger of the spirit of nature, if you want to not see the view of God. Ultimately, there is just intelligent component, there is expressive realities, like a multidimensional system with so many different intensities of these systems taking place, like occurring. Okay. So when it comes to conscious and unconscious fury, you can say, or it can be said, that as the human being opens its eyes in the world and it begins treating itself as a sense of self and then creating the concept of time, so it has like the next day, the next day, the next day, it's as if an attention that is just instantaneously existing due to its mass identification with an embodiment. It's like our subconscious, or we have the dark side of the moon. The subconscious can be seen as the dark side of the mind. So as this child, human child, evolves on this planet, begins to fragment itself through identity and psychology to be able to access the cultural program. It is the creation of time that really colors in what the intense expression of might and fury is. So what I mean by that is that if the person, right now, whoever you are, if you just consider the human being, just every human being, the species, and a member of the species, like just the human, you can choose to see the human as the most inefficient thing that's happening in nature, or you can choose to see it as the most efficient. You see what I'm saying? It's an inner meaning and value systems. They are arising from the inner ability of the free will to accept, and like an artist that has finished paintings, realize the last brush stroke is to let go of the brush. In the dark side of the mind, there could be an accumulation of memories, and based on what type of experiences the human being has had, that's where the framework of their values for life arise. So in some sense, you can say might or fury, they are actually qualities of a strong being. That means, let's say, fury It could be unconscious conscious fury is like pretty much anger and hatred. Unconscious fury is how it's as if the person's getting fed up without knowing. You know, I feel there's a lot of human beings on this planet, even in great philosophers. Like I saw it when I saw Friedrich Nietzsche. I was like, you know, when I say I saw, I mean when I read his work, and just many others in history, they are left to downplaying reality due to the way their cultures held them. You see, right now, if I was to consider myself as a free being, that means I am not shackled to anything. That means if I don't want to be a slave of a materialistic reality, that means if I don't, like, this is a very ancient yogic view. It's pretty much the post-realization that the world is being simulated. So the world is a dream, and that dream state seer is getting angry with the dream. Eventually reaching a point where it's as if inefficient systems strangely attract to themselves destructive powers. You know, I've realized this. Or I should say, in a better way, I've noticed this. It's this unknown energy that is starting in its own inner theater. That means every person that wakes up in the morning, you've woken up in 2 dimensions, not 1. Your body is awake, and then also your conscious mind is aware that your body is awake. It's as if in the morning we don't just get dressed, we also dress our mind in regards to what we see and what we do. I think anything that tries to reach for the inconceivable is mighty. Anything that, in some sense, is attached in a changing world, that, like, the issue with fury is its inefficient might. That's the best definition of fury. You know, like, people don't know this. I think, what was the guy's name? Genghis Khan. Genghis Khan, this Mongolian warlord, he has this quote where in his invasion and trying to conquer and pretty much, like, he would pretty much, like, conquer territories, and to the people that were scared in those territories, he would say, "I am the wrath of God." Do you know the human ego has played with the idea of God in so many ways? Or you can even say, for example, the psychotic attitude that Hitler had. Do you know? Where it was as if, imagine a neat freak with an army, you know? Imagine, you know, a person not... It's like, how can I tell you? Human minds have expressed themselves through chaos and order. Those who express it in order were the guardians of decency. Those who express through chaos, they were the fallen. That is the nature of reality. When a person destroys, your attention goes to destruction, so it's as if your mind has a layout of breaking. Do you know? That's the issue with violence. It's kind of like, you can say it can become an addiction, you know? And so the whole human animal is based on habit, but I'm trying to say that the human mind should just recognize it took 4.5 billion years for civilization 1.0 to occur. The moment we could speak was the moment where unnecessary violence should have been completely avoided. And it's kind of strange, because if a person tries to push out the chaos too much, they'll realize life has chaotic and ordered dimensions. Animals hunt each other in the wild. It's like, I remember when I was young, there was this there was pretty much channels with TV that had ratings, and then there was just Animal Planet, which was animals like, the viciousness of animals. It's like, nobody puts a rating on documentaries. From ignorance, the species has stepped beyond the jungle, and we've entered a concrete jungle where violence really shouldn't make sense anymore. Like, imagine one day in the UN, everybody was shocked listening to the news. They were like, in the United Nations, they have agreed that violence should be off the table. That means just like how there's a lockdown for people wearing masks during Corona times. Imagine all nations were like, yeah, war is unnecessary, education is way more interesting. That means imagine all the world leaders were like, what would the most educated, like incredibly aware and conscious and efficient human species look like? Like, am I the only person on this planet who's fascinated to know how this looks like? Sometimes I feel like that when I give these talks. But anyways, the whole point of me sharing all this is to try to show you the difference between fury and might, and how there's a time relative component, and how there's a cultural dimension added to it. That means it's as if where you aim the might, or imagine might or fury, and from one view they're both a very intense energetic state. Now this intense energetic state, where is the focal point of its direction? Where is where is it being thrown at, or where is it being taken? To me, this might sound strange, but communication sometimes is literally like, just like how soldiers in the battlefield fought with swords and shields. It's like communication to me seems to be like that, but instead of the sword and shield, there are honest levels to life and dishonest levels to life. There is that which is in the visible domain and that which is in the invisible. Like these talks that I give, when I give the talk, it's as if that's a tiny percentage of my being. I'm a person who, I've been asked if I believe in past lives, like really, if I believe in past lives. And my answer was that who I am now, which wants to consider a past life, is such a tiny percentage of what the true intelligence of being is. You see, we are a human being. There is a form level, a level of pure geometry, and then there's a level of just witnessing energy. Now, the relationship of witnessing energy with inner geometry suggests how the outer geometry takes place. One quality of an advanced civilization that attracts me, like there's something about it, it's like how would I say it? I would classify myself as, in the inner realms I'm a very sensitive person, in the outer realms I'm content with the insensitive. In an advanced civilization, I would try to fathom, in some sense, an honor system. That means imagine that every honorable act was consciously accumulated and recorded. It's like honor of the most advanced. And true advancement is a type of advancement that doesn't need to destroy the past so the future arrives. You know, this whole thing of might and fury, if people don't like the world they're living in, they eventually become furious. If people love the world they're living in, they become mighty. And both ways are channels for an accumulated or a brewed energy to, in some sense, respond. I've had moments where before I give these talks, I'll just, bring in a little of the behind the scenes here. It's like throughout the day I'm going by and I suddenly get an inner event, an emotional based inner event where it's as if I've closed my eyes and what is happening in my inner realms is so animate and expressive that it takes my attention from the outer realm. And then there's this emotion where you see it's like a person can have any sort of spiritual, transcendental, undying perception. But there is a view to life. Think of this as a level of reality that is accessible. And in this level of reality, you begin to see the fragility of not only the human psyche, but the fragility of a species. That means it's as if there was this attitude that people looked at human beings and it's like, they're like, it's a miracle we're here. I'm pretty sure existence is a miracle. The idea is that when we look at what existence is really, it is a system that till the end of time can require assistance. That means I had this, how would I say this? I'm diving into this idea, but I have had moments where I would say sometimes I see it as prayers, sometimes I see it as transmissions. And I've had moments where there was a moment where it was, again, in my inner realms, I was alone, and for a moment there was just this feeling where it was as if like a shouting command was like from the center of my being, a shouting command was going to the whole world, as if all beings in all dimensions just advance. You see, advancement means the shackles to chaotic image or only ordered images is being thrown away. We're wondering about what might be. And that is the strength. That is where the courage comes, there was this show, incredible, character development. There's this show called Shingeki no Kyojin, and there's a character in that show which is very smart but is afraid. It's like a smart coward, or I shouldn't say smart coward, but it's like there's this smart character. I shouldn't say coward. I would say this shy smart character called Armin in this show called Shingeki no Kyojin. There's a moment where he suddenly knows exactly what to do, and he sees that his hands are not shaking in this battle scenario, and he just says, I can feel courage flowing through me. And I remember I was watching this scene and I was like, that definitely explains it, that it is suddenly an energetic piloting, as if the pilot knows where it's going, right? And then the force can be controlled, the energy can be controlled. In Shahnameh Ferdowsi's work, where I was saying the story of Rostam, there's another mythological character called Arash the Kamangi. which means Arash the archer. And there's this line where it says like this archer, when he would release the bow of it, and the arrow would shoot towards his opponent, it's like when the arrow hit his opponent, it was as if the opponent was never born. Do you know? Like as if this guy is like he's an archer where in one shot it's like, you know. Pretty much the idea is touching the inconceivable activates an incredible energy, an incredible power, right? Now this power, if it is just fueled and channeled into the cultural, social dimension, then the person learns to receive. It's like you get this unique energy, and then what you do with this energy is either you can receive the moment or you can express in the moment. You know, our species is so trying to be like a good boy to its past that that in some sense it is forgetting how we are here to live in a way where all the human beings in the past will be in awe and all the human beings in the future will be in awe. That is the approach. That means novelty eternalizes because it expands the conceptual domain. Pretty much, it's like we're a species that is so used to wearing time goggles that when you take time out of the equation of perception, it just becomes this vastness of presence. That vastness of presence. Now, I have to talk about something because I consider that maybe certain people who listen to these talks, they're also, you know, let's say other spiritualists, to me, like, I don't try to mask myself in language, but anyways, let's say some people, those who call themselves spiritual, right? It's as if it's like a crowd of people who have experienced how reality is unknown, and so it's as if it's an expanded view on a previous realm. Okay, so it's as if an experience has stretched their knowing of what really this event of life is, right? But it has stretched it to the unknown, which means the current reality becomes unexplainable. It's kind of like this, like a spiritual person suddenly realizing there's something more than the body and mind is like a character in a video game who suddenly, or imagine someone's playing a video game and the character in the video game suddenly experiences a glitch. Like imagine there's a glitch in the video game where there should be a car, like a bench appears, right? You know, and then suddenly a car appears and it's like a glitch in the system of that video game, in the engine of that video game. When one entertains a metaphysical perception to reality, not metaphysical only, multidimensional view, pretty much when you become a multidimensional viewer of your own self in reality, it's as if there isn't a recognition, or if there isn't a contentment with how unknown the attention is. That means if the person is not content with the unknown, the energy they get from, let's say, transcendental experiences, it gets reactively. It's as if the person got something, their ego's not comfortable to hold, so they want to throw away the energy. What does the species deserve? Does the species deserve to miserably journey the realm? Does the species deserve to efficiently roam the realm? Does the species deserve to realize that freedom is when a superior dimension watches the previous dimensions? It's as if a free being no longer seeks freedom, rather seeks truth. After you find freedom, it's like truth is left. But if you search for truth, freedom automatically comes with it. And I'm not talking about cultural truths or truths of the personality. It's like our social systems are linguistic simulations. They are language-oriented, identity-based video games. Imagine there was this, somebody was looking for the most advanced virtual reality or light projector system or reality projector system. It's like your own mind is the greatest version of it. Our inner realms it's like a room where you can experience life happening before it happens in the outer realms. So might and fury, its subjective component, pretty much it's how the character in the story is reacting to the world of the story. Fury is a reaction where it's as if you have been defeated. Fury is post-defeat reaction, or someone who's about to be defeated, their reaction. But might is undefeated response to the realm. That's what might is, and I feel that if you look at human beings just by just through a simple analysis, it's like you'd be like, okay, they're good people, they're bad people. That means they're mighty people, right? And they're furious people. There is power hidden in the species. This power does not have a proper circuit to move through, a collective circuit, I feel in the future civilizations, or I shouldn't say civilizations, societies will be designed like brains. Different sectors with different responsibilities, It's as if there's incredible potential hiding in another dimension, and it is only the collective effort of the species. Every human being has to be like, okay, I want to see what the most advanced is like. Why have I been, rummaging through inefficient moments? It's how you hold your attention. I am telling you, the secret of life is everything is in attention. The word consciousness is like a colored way. It's like attention with content, with recognizable content. It's like light enters an object and it reflects. Light enters the eyes of an object and it reflects as a subjective response. In my, honestly, like something that has kept me going with this channel is that I remember from the first day where I was like, okay, 10,000 talks, just to see if I could do it, you know, just to see if it's possible to leave such an imprint. Of course, time will tell what I can never know. In an advanced civilization, the concept of advancement is the purification of all egos in the sector. It's as if after an individual experiences his advancement, he's like, okay, been there, done that. What is the advancement of the whole system? That means it's as if human beings were living in such an advanced way that imagine, like in this hypothetical sci-fi scenario, extraterrestrials arrived and they were like, we're going to invade this planet, you know, and then suddenly one of the extraterrestrials was like, hey boss, hey boss, it's like these guys are not even reacting to us being in their atmosphere. And let's say one day send a messenger and this extraterrestrial comes and starts talking to human beings, and human beings are like, hey man, we're too busy. This sector of the universe is advancing, you know, either join or leave, you know. And imagine that invading extraterrestrial civilization becomes the disciple of our species. Can you imagine there's going to be maybe like a cyber guru archetype, or maybe some guru in the future, right? And aliens come down and, you know, they become disciples of this guru, you know. Imagine this guru's like, hey guys, my gurus, they consist of robots, aliens, animals, where with technology they can talk and all sorts of... In reality, energy is just consciously walking, you know, with itself. There's this sage by the name of Swami Krishnananda. He says religion is God remembering himself. That means it's like what the religious ego blockades, you know, or blocks, is this recognition that when the religious person follows the tenets of the religious text, they reach an elevated level of self-proclamation, you know. And in that elevated level of self-proclamation, they become this, like our ego is designed to be in a submissive relationship with how nature reveals itself. That means it's like, to a religious person, if aliens land, they're like, look at what God's will is doing, you know. Like, do you see what I'm saying? Religion is like an exit stairway from the cultural program into a recognition that it's like there was never human beings here, it's God who's here. You know, that's pretty much where the whole concept of Satchidananda arises. You know, it's as if the truth, the subjective truth that we were after, we recognize it as an unknown presence within all beings instantly. You know, when I identify as a known entity, then it's like, you know, it's as if I've chosen a certain archetype. But when I identify as an unknown being, like an example of it would be right that moment, right when I'm about to fall asleep. Like I go in my bed, I lie down, and I just watch how the moment is being. And as you watch how the moment of being, as there is a point you drift off to sleep, at least the way I experience it is, it's like before it's completely lights out and the deep sleep state, that moment before I enter deep sleep, I am not a personality. It's like I am just energy aware. And from an energetic relationship, we're actually conscious. Like if there was if the energetic dimension was conscious beyond personality, we are conscious 24/7. And it's kind of strange, like if you entertain a multidimensional, let's say, angle of the soul, it's as if like when a person sleeps, they've parked their physical body, and it's as if they've entered a dream realm, or they've gone somewhere else. To me, honestly, sleep is like, I don't know, maybe it's reminding us how life comes and goes. Ultimately, the might of human beings, it arises from what you feel the world deserves. You know? And what I see, at least in a lot of movies and like superhero movies, the concept of justice is pretty much self-defense, but the limits of that self-defense is based on, you know, it's as if if you look at most stories, it's like not most stories, I'll say there's some stories, it's like there's a decent world, something indecent happens, it brings problems, and then there are characters that arise in the show that to solve those problems. It's honestly a contrast between the speed of cultural events and the speed of nature's event. You know, if you think that, let's say you want to a person gets nervous giving a talk, okay? This person is thinking, okay, I want to give one talk. Now imagine you were a person that you were like, I'm going to give 10,000 talks. And because you have set the standard at the furthest reach, do you know? It's as if giving a single talk becomes easy. Do you know? I'm telling you, that's where it's a contrast. That means every person right now listening to me, you are being a sense of self, and now this sense of self, the reason it's the only way that it's a self is because it has separated itself from the world. You know, it's very hard to tell if trees, are like have an individual energetic presence, or they have pretty much all of nature's energetic presence. So, if a person doesn't fear intensity, finds I would say you find the most advanced, you find the advanced gem of your moment. You find the treasure. You realize there's a diamond component to your nature if previously you were seeing it as dirt. You know. And it's your vision. Vision means how far your heart wants to run in the realm before it leaves. To me, those who have loved in the past, that means if you were to categorize human psychology between hatred and love, you would see those who went to the path of love entered a state of vulnerability, but they had seen the future earlier than, I don't know how to say it. It's like those who were peaceful in our history, when we look back, they were ahead of their time. It's as if they were time travelers that had realized the value of the human mind. You know, it's like we're not here to have outer realm problems. The sooner the species acknowledges, brings forth a multidimensional perception of the human being, it's as if in the outer realms, their world peace is like proper resource allocation and efficient and kind advancement of the species. In the inner realms, there can be intensity, just like how people on like multiplayer online games, they fight with each other. It's like we restrict violence to cyberspace. Imagine countries like nations in the UN, before declaring war on each other, right? It's as if before they declared it, they brought forth a simulation of their military in contrast to the military of the person they wanted to invade. You know, it's not person, the nation, right? So I'm saying, or even all you world leaders who want to like have a military all-out global war, like if ever that idea approaches, first thing, get the people, the world leaders, to play a video game version of it. Imagine some next level video game company comes to the UN and chooses to, in some sense, scale, you know, inside the video game, the exact comparative power of each nation's military. Do you know? And so it's as if world leaders who started wars, the war was in cyberspace. Nobody died, and at the end there was a winner and loser. Because regardless of war, the biggest issue is that it's as if a decision of, oh man, this is very bizarre what I'm talking about, but it's inefficient. It's as if in World War I and II, what was it, 85? Here, I'll Google it. How many people died in World War I and World War II? Here it says estimated deaths range from 50 to 80 million. So, in some sense, millions of people vanished due to physical miscalculation, due to an inability of minds to come into agreement before bodies are destroyed. You see, it's because we have seen the human being is too small. If world leaders were like, no way, there's 8 billion creatures on a galactic island, stranded away from their celestial birthright in regards to one day we will have cities in space. It's like overpopulated on Earth, you know, buy some real estate in space, you know. So that day will come. First sky cities will come, and the evolution of the sky city is in some sense interstellar cities. And there's so many different views of it. You can pretty much have like ring cities, you can have sphere cities. Giant ships can just become cities, you know. So in some sense, there will come a day where human beings have to leave Earth. If we are inefficient and society is just ignorant of the quality of life it's presenting for everybody, it's as if like, think of it this way. Let's say you're someone who has an ego. Now, to the egoic, how the concept of advanced civilization arises, I would say the most healthiest approach is really that the person, they have an ego for themselves. They have an ego for their, let's say, family, right? They have an ego for their grandchildren, their children and grandchildren, you know? So now imagine having an ego for not just your greatest grandchildren, you know, grandchild, but to have an ego that, okay, I'm a human being that is in the most advanced species, right? You attribute the advancement to the whole species, right? So it becomes something where we're like just 8 billion crew members who are like, okay, this kind of like, this spaceship has to go for a while. You see, right now, it's as if civilized management is required. Just trying to tell human beings that there are, collectively, there's strength in numbers. What that means is, imagine, like, here's the cool thing, if all the ideological institutions in society and in civilization 1.0, okay, if they were all making the world more efficient, right? Then in some sense, their ideological system would have honor in the outer realms. But the issue is, it's as if there's so many different groups of people, and in some sense, these groups are aligned to an inner landscape rather than to be aligned for like the potential potential destiny of the outer landscape. You see, it is like anybody who talks about an advanced civilization, we are in that time in history where we're singing songs about it. It hasn't occurred yet. You know, right now it's as if like if the person's like, why hasn't the advanced civilization occurred? The answer comes because its potential hasn't been actualized. Now the question comes, why hasn't the potential been actualized? Because deep down there hasn't been this decision that, yeah, it's as if like, why not an advanced civilization? If you have this view, I will tell you, it's like, what greater enlightenment can there be? You see, the issue is people are being ignorant and trying to go to heaven rather than realizing we have one lifetime to build paradise on earth. What that means is earth is a boundary of choices. There will be chaos and order, but now the issue is that human conscious communication can in some sense administer as a medium between chaos and order. You know, it's as if every teacher can become a great teacher on this planet if they guide every human being to their most advanced state. I am telling you. You know, what people called back in the day gurus, to me, all communication is piloting. Now, emotions, this may sound strange, but I have had moments where if you say like, just like how there would be a shock if, let's say, hypothetically an alien landed, I'm just trying to visualize, like if an alien landed in front of me, how would that put a sense of shock in me, right? And now I'm thinking about how certain moments I've experienced an emotion I've never experienced, and the emotion was alien, right? So that means if a person wants to truly contribute to the advanced civilization, it's like you need to be able to know how to maneuver a vehicle. That means anybody who can drive, you know, or who can manage, you know, a moment. It's as if that's the only amount of level of mind it takes to realize now we want to pilot individual personalities. This doesn't mean change your world truth. This doesn't mean like you have to change who you are. It just means that instead of replacing or subtracting something to find the ultimate, it's as if you're adding another dimension. You see, Civilization 2.0 is like the older brother of Civilization 1.0. When it arrives in the room, it is not there to, in some sense, dismiss Civilization 1.0. The whole idea is that we envision in our inner realms a capable, potential, functional, and efficient outer realm possibility, a new ethos. That means I think this is the concept of the advanced civilization is the last step of the staircase of mythology. And might comes from that. It's honestly, you're alive and it's like, what do you care about? And when I say care, not what you have analyzed as winning, but in some sense, what is it that you care for in this world? Like beyond whatever nation or culture you're from, beyond whatever personality you have. It's like, ask yourself, what do you as a presence of being? It's like, what do you care about? And it's like every person suddenly sees like there's a glow. There comes this inner glow where it's as if like a person's realizing their true relationship with reality, not a relationship that's ideological. So fury and might. Let's put the scenario in the past. I've given an example. You know, in the present, somebody being mighty is somebody in let's say, state in spaces of indecency amplifies just decency. The idea is that all human beings have a value, but their value is in how much they care to actualize their potential in a world that they are in once, right? To me, the true state of mind that works in the true state of man's mind, where I would say like if we were comparing states of mind, I would say a state of mind that has been born out of a presumption of instant freedom looks at reality and for a second feels how much of it is still unknown. You see, we have feared the ability of the mind, not realizing that the moment we accept it, we love our realm. That is when the justice of nature becomes synchronized with your pre-personality viewer stage. You know, it's as if as I'm talking to you right now, on some level I'm energy. You know, energy really has no relationship with anything else. Energy is just being energy, right? Then there is the part of me that is the conscious faculty of the mind that has looked at the world and behind my eyes, like a designer sitting at a table, wondering about what would an incredible design of an advanced civilization look like. And to me, it is in some sense all the blind spots are rediscovered. It's as if we create so many backup systems that we never dishonor the past and at the same time present an incredible composed archive. The idea is that there is an incredible, it's like every person who's alive, behind your eyes, you're experiencing a unique world. And if you feel the outer realms doesn't deserve to know about this, right, it's as if you have denied the future generations to learn from what you learned. You see, it's like, for me, before we can be certain, we got to do research. So it's as if before you have truth, there's a research phase. Okay? You know? For the sadhu, it was the case. So you are researching, and if you put the basis of your research not on probability and statistics, but experiential actuality, it's like there is no street smarter approach. There is no time. Or think of it this way, it's like every person has 100 years to see what their most advanced self would look like, what their most advanced contribution to the realm would be. You see, it's as if rather than thinking everybody has to be one clone psychology of an army, that's what advancement means. On the contrary, it's as if it's a realm of great warriors, like master martial artists, and every human being's DNA being different, as if they have their own martial art, okay, their own style, right? So it's as if 8 billion great warriors have found themselves in this void scenario on a rock in the middle of nowhere. That's really what the universe is. You know, the rest is like this is the best we can see so far. And so every person, or here I'll put a better example. Instead of a great warrior, everybody's like a great musician, and everybody has a unique instrument, which is their own DNA. And it's as if there's an orchestra happening before the person is born called civilization. And then when the person is born, they can choose to participate in the civilization. They can choose to, in some sense, reach for the global, because the universal, because the galactic scenario and the universal scenario are at hand. We are reaching a time where the freedom of the inner realms is giving us a permission to incredibly update the outer realms. You know, every human being should be a writer, because we could use the honest research of what is the mind exactly doing. Do you know? Now, I gotta say this too. When it comes to the ideological level of might, and think of might as the most honorable, benevolent presence. That's how I keep it simple for myself. That means it's as if existence is great. Experience is what can turn the world and flip this coin of chaos in order to be. You see, it's as if this is very being said in a poetic way, but it was as if this universal being flipped a coin, and the coin was just spinning in space, and before the coin landed, it's as if on that coin a species endlessly wondered about what was going on in reality. And let's say the coin was spinning so fast that it was like it appeared as a sphere. Just reality's context can be changed, guys. That's pretty much, what listeners can learn here. I'm just saying, everybody's, of course, walking their own path. It's pretty much like an ancient metaphor where they said life is like a mountain, and everybody's walking towards the summit, and everybody's creating their own way on the mountain. When you reach the summit, you realize that the human species does deserve the most advanced. When you realize that, you laugh, and then honor flows through you. Right? Honor that, okay, in this lifetime, the aim is to see how incredible the species behaves. Not how, oh man, another war. Do you see? That's such old news. It's as if even good and evil are bored of how much they have been just good and evil. Do you know, it's like the attention now moves on towards what other greater ways are there that human beings can live, and how the individual human personality, that means every person can contribute to the advanced civilization by wherever you are. So imagine like 8 billion advanced celestial beings, poetically I'm saying this. Imagine poetically 8 billion advanced celestial beings, and they are not embodied. And then they choose, this whole 8 billion plus crew chooses to enter Earth, okay? And it chooses to enter Earth and build an advanced civilization on an uninhabited rock. But it chooses to advance it from the center of the planet, not from the surface. It could be that civilizations are how the center of the planet is how the Gaian heart is pulsating. It's as if civilizations that rise and fall, they are waves of, let's say, potential particles on Earth being light activated. I don't know, there's an excitement. When I think about myself, my physical self, that's like a very limited idea. But when I think about the potential of self, that's where the inner realms, like Photoshop, provides an ability to modify reality in your inner realms, and that becomes probabilities to the moment. It's as if the idea is these 8 billion crew members, they realize eventually intelligence is such a greater game that those who step on the battlefield of intelligence, they are way more superior than those who have stepped into the battlefield of just unconscious repetition. When I say unconscious repetition, I'm talking about lesser species. It's like every day is their just momentary instincts. It's as if creatures that were it's like, the behavior of the person is a dance of their environment and their inner environment. Themselves with their environment. The idea is to see Excuse me, I'm taking a breather. The future is going to care how we lived in the present, and so there needs to be a sort of such advanced consideration where it's as if we are preparing one lifetime to see what happens, one lifetime to act, and one lifetime to care for what it was all about. Nature is already free. Existence. It is the great stage where a greater dimension can dance on with it. 8 billion artists or musicians play their songs. That means their greatest inner realm reaches for the greatest outer realm. That's the most simplest algorithm to what I would consider as a successful lifetime. Not only has every human being found a contentment with how they are just, the presence of the moment is being so simple and unknown. And it's in our movement where it animates into complexity. And now we have reached a time of coordinated movement, which I have termed in my talks the era of advanced communication. Probably it's from 2000, I mean it started earlier, I declared it 2020, but I'll say from 2022 probably to 2000, let's say 122. It is the most important period of advancing language, which means before robots come and entertain us with cyberspace realms that occupy us from the outer realm, we actually try to see the greatest thing we could do in the outer realms. Like, it could be the case that, let's say 400 years from now, I could fathom that there's gonna be like a strange scenario where you would step on a balcony and see in the sky that there are these, let's say, giant boxes, or kind of like spaceship boxes or containers in the sky. And in these containers were all those human beings that had chosen to enter a nutrition pod, a sort of like their body was like floating in this liquid, right, without any pressure hitting the body on any side of it, right, in the pod, and their brain was experiencing reality in cyberspace, right? So imagine somebody, it's like all the addicts on the planet, they went into those pods, like it was a government provided service of, the enlightened societies in the future. But imagine, so there was a decision. A person could be like, why should I just live this physical, simple outer life when I can go experience a very complex and sophisticated and godhood level of a cyberspace life, right? You see, if we don't accept, we try to escape. When we try to escape, we realize what we couldn't accept was how we were being. So human beings in the future, they have a decision. It could be like even parents, like hospitals become so advanced that the parents like, all right, I want for 10 years my child to grow in this nutrition pod, right? And as this child is growing, I want this child to experience 30 years of life and 10 years of life, right? So the child actually is born first in an inner cyberspace realm, and then after 10 years of living that cyberspace life, which was a live stream of actual life, imagine, right? Whatever happens to the child, it awakens in its body, right? Sorry guys, I have to write something down. Okay. I just came up with an incredible idea for a film, which I had to write down. Anyways, I'm just, some guy talking. In reality, the mysteries of life are so beyond our individual suffering that it's as if when you try to solve a collective problem, that's where I feel true honor is born, right? So human beings think of it as if we are there was this anime called Dragon Ball Z or something, Dragon Ball, where the main character, Goku, was from a warrior species. Now you begin to think as if human beings are a problem-solving species. We're problem solvers instead of warriors. We're designers instead of warriors. Right. We are a designer species, not a warrior species. So it would be a scenario where we are solving micro problems which relate to the direct personal life, physical life, physiological life, and then we start solving macro problems which has more on the collective psychological side of human life. I feel like a gardener that is looking at, I feel like a flower that is, or I would say like a gardener that is waiting for the flowers to sprout, which means that, every human being is like a sophisticated, unique character in their own video game of psychology. And as they climb out of their own inner simulations and they visit the unknown outer earth, it is magnificent. It is literally like the person went to see Niagara Falls, or the Eiffel Tower, and now the person suddenly realizes, wow, existence is just being here in such an unknown way. And any effort to know it is self-simulation, is it not? If you were a neurologist, you would probably say this. It's as if the more materialistic you become, the more it's like everything is a hallucination of an elemental realm. It's as if it's like right now I'm the periodic table talking to you. How dare you not see me as the periodic? We are potential. We are unknown, the unknown potential of intelligence to actualize our known life. And true might comes not from, let's say now in this talk, let's say some people in the future are going to listen to my talks or just be on this planet and they're going to have a furious nature. Let's say there's some very mighty beings become angry and their might turns into fury. Okay, so if you are someone who's listening to this, if you are furiously listening to this talk, I would say sit down, like cross-legged like the Buddha, wherever you are, just sit down and be still and try to be like in a museum where you're trying to not touch anything. You're just listening to how the moment's being. Okay, and pretty much Aristotle says it's a sign of an educated mind to entertain a thought without accepting it. That means we don't have to react to our inner realms changing. We just have to watch it as it is changing, and we learn from it. It's as if there is no learning from a spiritual experience. You know, it's as if there's experience and then there's a spiritual classification. I mean, the spiritual, it's like an added dimension arises. It's like, how do we get, you know, every human being to first honor the value of their species? And then to realize that regardless of how angry you can get at it, it's as if I can understand the feeling. There were times where I was like, why should I even be here? Why should I care for the future of this world that is so indecent in certain dimensions or dishonest in certain dimensions? It's as if it's like a circus show, the outer realms. You know, and what I mean by this is as if everybody's performing, their brains are performing in every moment, you know. But the idea is how much a conscious position can engage a conscious realm, right? And conscious components to the realm. And it's as if, do you know how incredible it would be that regardless of the power position in life you are, like there's the story of the Medici family during the time of the Renaissance in Italy, and the streets of like some square or like some part of the city was like, the city was made so incredibly with such great architecture and just glorification from the beginning, where it was that even though there was someone in power, the power wanted the powerful world, right? It's as if that is a sign of weakness, controlling, let's say, something, and not having what you control evolve or update. That is pretty much the cowardice of a multidimensional being. You know, in reality, if you don't understand freedom, it's like it's not just physical movement. It's freedom to realize that not only you have never been the past that has passed, but that the future awaits. And how shall you enter? You know, enter the Iron Man suits, the ideological Iron Man suits that the future has in stock for you. You know? It's like every day I wake up, it's as if my mind is dressed in the observation of that moment. You know? It's very fascinating. We are so multidimensional that violence is like becomes stupid, and repetitive goodness also becomes inefficient. You know, it's like the good and evil had a third sibling, and that sibling was in some sense advancement. You know, the advancement of the inner view. And of course, you know, just like how a person organizes their papers on a table, you know, similarly a person can organize the significance of the major components of their reality. I pretty much decided that it's like an attitude I have where every day I wake up, I'm like, whatever is happening, it's as if what is the calculation for the most advanced thing that can happen that day. You know, as a being, not as a cultural being, as an existential being. Perhaps a reason why the eyes are, we have a first person point of view from our eyes, is that let's say the truth of nature wanted to have the human intelligence to wonder about itself outside in, not inside out, outside in. We started from the outside, and now we're in. We're within the moment. Regardless of what justification there is for rage, if inefficiency is part of the result, it's as if the task was itself failure. It's as if an advanced civilization requires to be built by the advanced. Do you understand? That's the only way it can be an advanced civilization, if the most advanced moments of being are there from the beginning. This is why Civilization 2.0 is literally like human beings waking up and living in their inner realms in accordance to what they feel the greatest efficient view of their civilization is. Because it just gives you incredible honor. It's as if then I'm like, okay, I'm speaking for a species that is advancing, not a species that is in a reaction to the void terror paralysis. It's as if it's like the world has different intensities, different levels, just like a vehicle, right? There's an intensity, there's a speed. There's some moments that we require to be the driver of the moment, and there's some moments where you require to be a passenger, right? And if you realize that the point is not which one you are, the point is how have your eyes journeyed so far, and where are they looking at? Language is like that saying where they say, when I point at the stars, don't look at the tip of my finger. Beyond the emotions of how we have been content with what the past has done so far, what if every human being's life purpose is unknown and it requires to be revealed in the way that only they can? You see, it's as if true enlightenment is not one person saying, hey, everybody, clone yourself to one ideological system. It means that we start from the greatest position of freedom. And freedom means freedom for the void to be here, freedom for a singular existence to be here, freedom for a multidimensional reality to be here, and freedom for the infinite. The multidimensional reality, I forgot, freedom from the, I'll say it again. It's as if an ultimate sense of freedom would be freedom for the void to be the void, freedom for a singular existence to be a singular existence, freedom for a dualistic experience to be a dualistic experience, and freedom of a dualistic experience realizing the infinite is the great task of mankind. Even though immortality may seem as a dull idea, but at the same time, if we're caring for the species to continue, we are pursuing immortality. Right, that means it's like there's a candle that's been lit, which is the species, and this candle cannot go out. That is the purpose of physical life. And now, after we've shielded it from the winds of time, in some sense, it's like a healthy passage, or echo of the species' potential. It's as if I want the whole species to feel the honor of having a major role in existence. It's as if this is strange. It's not that we need intensity pointed towards violence or physical intensity. All violence, again, has a place in cyberspace. But in the outer realms, we want to create as an advanced civilization, a type of civilization where there is a freedom for the greatest ideas in that civilization to reach the top where it becomes broadcast broadcasted to all. We are in an information age, and now it is time to accept, where we are building the human empire. Reality is so huge, and it has such potential that there can never be disagreement, only the discovery of additional dimensions. And if we can maintain all of it, I am telling you, I don't know, I haven't had the privilege in this lifetime, but if there was a team of the people on Earth, like there was this one team where they were trying to wonder about the design of everything. Maybe in the future the School of Athens 2.0 will be actualized. Honestly, if we care for the future, we're required to leave them a gift. And that gift is how far we carried the torch. How advanced we were while we were alive, while we were here. This advancement means, let me tell you, the ultimate spectrum. If you could have different advancement in so many different dimensions, that means imagine there was a evil entity that wanted to advance, and there was a ordered entity, a good entity that wanted to advance. It's as if they would both come to the realization that when both sides of the coin are acknowledged, civilization can finally step beyond duality. You see, we're reaching a point where human beings are awakening from a dualistic dream into a recognition that the unknown presence of reality creates an opportunity for your attention to go anywhere, right? There has been moments in this life where I have experienced myself as a pure geometrical shape in a dimension. That means imagine right now there is no soul, there is no advanced civilization. It's just a dimension of pure geometry and the potential of that geometry. There's so many ways that life is being held, where it's as if I could say something to all my parallel selves, I would say, without honesty, we don't exist. That's it. Without decency, which is the maintenance of a certain level of honesty, our species will miss out on how compassion, this idea that the Dalai Lama preaches, is a portal. It is a portal in creating a world that is not a utopia, but for geniuses it will be. That means we create a new structure of value, a new system of value on what the mind is doing on Earth, what all minds are doing on Earth. You see, anything that is bad, the only way you know it's bad because you're comparing it to something that's good. Now imagine anything you see that is inefficient, you deep down know there has to be an efficient view. In every moment of your life, whoever you are, if there's inefficiency, just know that there is another angle to that same moment where an efficient rhythm can happen. That means there is an efficient life, and if the choice is decent, it arrives. Anyways, guys, I need a quick break. I'll be back. There's more to say. Okay. So when I said there's more to say, I wanted to go into a quote tunnel of might, actually. And a quote tunnel is where I just read a bunch of quotes, pretty much. George Eliot says, it is never too late to be what you might have been. John Greenleaf Whittier says, for all sad words of tongue and pen, the saddest are these, it might have been. Lao Tzu, when I let go of what I am, I become what I might be. Princess Diana, carry out a random act of kindness with no expectation of reward, safe in the knowledge that one day someone might do the same for you. Bertrand Russell says, I would never die for my beliefs because I might be wrong. You see, this means we have a tolerance to keep understanding the moment before we impose decision. Satchel Paige says, don't look back, something might be gaining on you. Okay, that's ridiculous. That's like, it's obviously time, right? Time is like a conqueror, which is like, you know, time is the scenario, it's the scene, it's the stage. When you look back, you just realize that it's the stage. Anyways, Langston Hughes says an artist must be free to choose what he does, certainly, but he must also never be afraid to do what he might choose. Aretha Franklin says, be your own artist and always be confident in what you're doing. If you're not going to be confident, you might as well not be doing it. You know, that's exactly, because confidence, I think this is my view on it, that it comes from you realizing an advanced inner vision is possible. When you realize it's possible, like there's some part of you that knows it can happen, right? That gives you instantaneous confidence, because every moment is to take it further to that point. It's like a better world can be seen in the distance, and shall the species run towards it? You know, could the greater collective embrace await? Could it be that world leaders realize that the inner dimensions of human being have matured and become so multidimensional that violence was ignorance from the beginning? You know, Isaac Asimov has this quote. He says, violence is the last refuge of the incompetent. That means if you have a view of yourself that is incapable, right? If you are pushed in a scenario where your capability requires to be tested and you're incompetent, your last reaction is the cornered animal reaction. And the cornered animal reaction is like where you are like an unconscious instinctual entity. It's as if you're possessed by the environment. That's what instincts mean. The environment has a direct communicational reception point for the brain. You know, when I say I know my world, that's like me knowing that the world knows as I am. You see, attention is like this artifact that every person requires to find within themselves the source of their mind, the source of their attention. And when they realize that source of their attention, it goes beyond the boundaries of dualism, singularity, and the void, then an infinite pure reality awaits. This infinite pure reality is not structured as like a paradise with shape. It is literally how the potential, like the cause and effect are being one moment. When you experience that on a purely existential level, for a moment it's as if your mind is identifying not with your body, with everything in the moment being your body. And when that experience takes place, there's an inner freedom from all ideological landscapes in the universe. You see, the idea is not to the enlightenment that I find is manifesting on the surface of this planet currently is the enlightenment of a recognition that it's an unknown free energetic viewer of known psychological ideological landscapes, which then lead to psychology. Right? It's as if I am saying, hey, human beings, the inner realm through language is fixating a simulated meaning to life upon the meaningless outer realms. Now, this meaning is the divine factor. It's as if the question is not what the third eye saw, it's the third eye, poetically. So it would be a suggestion where we're wondering about the sight of the human being in an unknown dimension, or think of it as if there's an observable universe and an unobservable universe, there's also an observable self in the universe and an unobservable self in the universe, right? So it's as if the idea of self has a worldly component to it, you know. And once you confront your chaos and order, I had this inner experience, I'll share this, where I was on the porch one morning and I was sitting down with a paper and pen, and for a moment in my inner realms, it was as if my mind chose to fathom the most chaotic version of me and the most ordered version of me, and they were standing both in front of me, right? And they were staring at each other as if the most chaotic self is limited to how the most ordered self exists. And it's the vice versa too. And then my most chaotic and ordered self, they stared at me, and I realized that's what's going on. There isn't a good person and a bad person. There is a being. There is like a third, it's like a triangle where one corner of it is just a viewer, the source of the awareness. One side of it is chaos, one side of it is order. Freed beyond the linguistic simulation, the inner realms will feel a very efficient and benevolent wilderness, sense of wildness. You know, you see, being wild, if it's destructive, it is unnecessary chaos. But if it's organized and ordered, where it's as if again, back to the musician analogy, where it's as if 8 billion musicians, they each play the greatest song they can, and it's as if a sort of collective value to individual presence arises in society, which surpasses the setbacks of the personality. Do you see what I mean by this? I mean that you liberate yourself through the unknown, just to realize that now that you are present, now that you have found where honesty began, how advanced do you want the world to be? There's a story which hopefully I can tell it correctly. It's about this king, and it's about this it's about what's the name? King Solomon. I think it's a story about King Solomon, where there's this civilian farmer that goes to the king and he says, like, I have debts and all this, help me out. And the king gives the farmer a gem, okay? And the farmer takes the gem home to his old wife. The farmer was old too, and he goes there and he says, wife, hide this gem, the king has blessed us, right? And the wife puts the gem in like a rice pot or something, and then, because they are an old couple, the wife forgets where she put the gem, and she gives the rice ball to the neighbor, okay, to the neighbor to hold. Now the husband comes and sees, oh my God, they've lost the gem, and the wife can't remember where the gem is. So what happens is the farmer goes again to the king and says, King, that happened. I don't know what to do. Help me out. And the king gives him another gem. Now the guy goes back, and before he goes to, in some sense, back home, he takes the gem to this river. okay, and he's washing it by the side of this river, polishing the gem. Suddenly he sees, as the gem is in his hand and he's right beside the pond, this fish jumps and eats the, what do you call it, the gem, right? And he loses the gem again, and he goes home and he tells his wife what happened, and he becomes depressed, and he doesn't do anything. He's just hiding from the king. He's like, there's no way I can go in front of the king again. And it seems that in the story, eventually the wife convinces him to go to the king, and he goes to the king and he says what happened, right? And if I remember correctly, I hope I'm not ruining the actual story, but if I remember correctly, what the king says is that King Solomon goes and talks to God and says, God, why does this person keep losing the treasures I give him, right? And then God says to King Solomon, this is like a point in the story, God says to King Solomon, because I am who gives, not you. I am the true giver, right? And when God wants to give, it's as if that's a different reception than it's like when man wants to give. Right? So King Solomon somehow, I think this is how the story ends, where he gives this third thing to the guy and says, don't lose it, right? And the guy eventually takes it home, and he just looks at it and he's like, this King Solomon's, what a great guy, And suddenly in that moment, the wife, he's like, what's cooking for dinner? The wife says fish, right? And then they sit at the dinner table opening the fish, right? And they see the gem is inside, and the farmer gets shocked. And then suddenly in the story, the wife remembers where the last gem was and brings the gem, and now he has 3 gems, okay? And in these 3 gems, right, it's as if the moral of the story was that when the universe provides, it is at a majestic level that the individual personality cannot provide. It's as if we are performers on an existential stage, but the great performance, the giants that are living the realm, are the conscious forces of nature that are living fields. In the Bhagavad Gita, there is a great metaphysical clue given. And it's, in some sense, God is talking, the avatar of God is having a conversation with this archer, and he tells this archer that within every human being there is a field. And within all those fields there is a field, and that's who I am. It's as if it's like a dialogue with an omniscient being. So in some sense, the notion is that the spirit of the species is an omniscient being. And the honor of the advanced civilization is how poetically the eternal walked on earth. I want, this is what I think the basic advanced communicator needs. Like a person interested in the idea of advanced communication, you get a notebook. Go buy a notebook. I'm gonna maybe open a bookstore on the channel where I provide like a unique notebook for people. But anyways, the idea is that the future is so crystal. I don't know how to say it. It's like, when I think about it, I was just like, basking in my inner vision of like, okay, how fast an advanced civilization is going to be. And the issue is not for all levels becoming equal, but rather we have built sectors. There's sectors where people are just monotheistic in that sector of an advanced civilization. There's sectors where people are the opposite. There's sectors of reality where majorly cyberspace functioning, where it's as if evil lives in a place where it can't reach Earth. Just like how the gods shackled the Titans, we shackle all sorts of, let's say we shackle human violence to cyberspace. we put the Titans in a dimension where imagination provides non-consequential result. So that means it doesn't like if there's a war being fought in cyberspace, nothing happens in the outer realms. The might of the might be is just pretty much every person, every human being wondering what their most advanced sense of self and being is like. And when you stand in the presence of that idea, your comparisons to let's say dishonorable instinctual patterns leaves. So what I mean by that is that you are not on, it's like what was just a rock in the middle of nowhere in the inner realms was painted. Was painted as an advanced civilization with the most advanced efforts. All media would just be victory revelation. You see, it's as if they asked this martial artist who, let's say, I don't know, fought like 12 people in a battle, like, how do you do it? And the martial artist was like, I have practiced my martial arts in so many different states of intensity and simplicity, and when I've practiced in simplicity, when I'm fighting 12 people at the same time, in my mind, I'm walking in my garden. That means this was a warrior at a level where it wasn't just agitation-based decisions. It was as if the person was standing in a serene and supreme inner realm. And as they stood in that inner realm, their outer realms, in some sense, poured through those considerations. Do you know? For me, people think honor is just something like the samurai had sometime. You know, I mean, when I say honor, I mean honor for a global surprise, for a global victory. Right now, there's there's nationalistic victory in regards to negotiations of nations with one another, but I'm talking about the victory of a species. Every person is like at the same time a pilot of their immediate range. You're a pilot of your inner realm, and you're a passenger of the outer realm. That's the big, that's a good level of humility to have, to be like, okay, I'm just here for the existential event. It's like you went to a concert, but it was existence. Freedom in the inner realm can be instantaneous. In the outer realm, it's adventure, to be honest. An advanced civilization will make it easier for great ideas to flow and to be actualized. You see, I'm telling you, everything I see, you can always see another side to it. Like, I look at the marketing era of 2022 right now, and I see so much deception in marketing where I'm like, am I watching Sun Tzu's Art of War in the advertising? Between shows on TV, it's as if we have to start respecting our greater self. You see, imagine that, I don't want to say God self, but I'll say imagine your greatest fathomable self. And then imagine your greatest fathomable self right beside you in your inner world. Just imagine it's right here. And then how would you behave? How would you act? And you'll see it's a completely capable new domain of activity. An advanced civilization is built by beings that were free before they were born. An advanced civilization is honestly like a global renaissance. Can you imagine every person in every part of the world suddenly, every individual moment begins advancing it unifies in collective advancement. Collective advancement and the whole system is the view of advancement, guys. Is really that you're trying to, it's like stranded on an island and you want to use everything available, so you preserve in its proper place everything you see. So pretty much it's like a way of outer realms not conditioning one's inner realm, is to walk in the world as if you have just arrived in it. You know, to experience the moment as if it's an arrival point for your consciousness and how the moment happens. And if there is decency, it doesn't matter if your view is dull, right? It's like there's so many activation points for energy that they can happen in chaotic states or ordered state. That means chaotic people can build something that's advanced for civilization, and ordered people can build something, right, that's advanced. So it becomes a situation of pretty much internally we create a great allegiance of minds. It's like the great allegiance of human minds, ultimately dedicated towards a vision of what else can happen. And it's as if this planet spins around itself, but it also spins in our minds in as many different ways as we are senses of self observing the world. Ultimately, as the ego strives towards a more powerful, advanced position, the greatest power is, think of it this way, the greatest complexity is simple. That means the most advanced view on an advanced civilization, that it's instantly happened. That's the most advanced, right? It's advancing in such a fast way where it went faster than light, so technically it's like here but not here. So, but in reality, I'm saying it's like a new era for new minds. Might and fury just filter everything, or at least see how the efficient is possible. This was the greatest self-help that I naturally realized. That the self that needs help is like, it can never get the help. You know, the idea is that if you see the causal position as imperfect, right, your whole life you're running after perfection. If you see the causal position as perfect, then the imperfections are perfect. Then nature is incredible in every moment. Fear was not an imposter, but the archetype that didn't need the driver's seat. You see, ability comes from a consideration, a deep, life-sensitive consideration of the value of a moment. True might is to, in your inner realms, when I say build a paradise, you can think of it building the advanced civilization. In your inner realm, you have caught sight of the advanced civilization, you know? And in your outer realms, you stand with the same honor, right? So the honor would be that every human being you meet is the most advanced, has the potential to be the most advanced human being you meet. Do you see what I'm saying? It's as if we decided not to see the best in people or the worst. We decided to see the greatest. And the greatest opportunity is like every intelligent point of consciousness has an ability, at least in the human eyes, to calibrate to the intensity of how the dimensions of the world compartmentalize for the mind. It's like the brain takes in information, and what it does with it is like where the personality runs. You know? If you care, or at least realize it's the same, it's as the efficient is as possible as the inefficient, then that becomes a sort of also ultimate forgiveness. That means you look at, if let's say you're mad at civilization 1.0 and you realize, oh my god, this was the best our ancestors could do. And now you realize the same burden is on the shoulders of the human beings that are alive now. You know, what performances will you provide for the world? How will you enter the global abode? You see, that's the privilege of at least cyberspace helps with that. So it's as if wondering of the truest power of your truest self, and your truest self has honored the honesty of life-sensitive being. That means you look at life and you realize, regardless of its expression, its causal moment is important. This is why human beings care for each other. We're not caring for just the periodic table. We're caring for the ability that lies within, you know? It's as if, this is the hilarious thing. The student looks at the, let's say it's like a martial art master and a disciple. The disciple looks at the martial art master, right, as like, oh my god, I'm a student and this guy's so higher level. The martial art master is looking at the student as if he is already a martial art master. And with that context, a compassion to care to see the advancement arises, right? It's as if not only freedom is a responsibility of how the attention is held in the moment is a state of mind, but it's that as the linguistic simulation shakes, through the honor of the advanced, all worlds compassionately are preserved. You see, it's like we have to archive attitudes to the world, right? And the only way is to unite human beings in realizing novelty, the potential of human beings, is so much more important than their disagreements that cause war. That's it. That's the greatest way of, global unification. It's like there's something better out there. This whole time, every system's like this. There's probably people listening to me and they're like, there's so many different, better ways, Mr.Within, you could give this talk or share this podcast. Feel free to comment below, by the way. But I'm saying pretty much it's as if the mind that enters a new world wonders about the presence of that new world. In our inner realms, we are time travelers and teleporters. We are also an ability to notice the inconceivable. But in the outer realms, the geometry of how the human species takes its every step, what greater honor can the wind of evolution move the human towards? It's as if, it was as if a species called out for the advanced to help it, and the advanced was like, you get advanced from within. Once you come to find an inner peace, as if you are like those, martial art movies where the person's just sitting by a pond or tiptoeing over a still pond, It's like that level of serene being with life. It's as if that's the difference between the mind of the master and the mind of the student. The master has such an experiential archive of, like, the person has a lot of experiences of a certain thing. And then when they are around those who don't have the experience, they just realize it's just there. You see, it's about, when you wonder about who's in front of your eyes, you create that. You create its meaning. But when you wonder about who's looking behind your eyes, that's when the unknown sets in. When the unknown sets in means it's like free energy as attention is observing free existence. There could even be there could be this argument where people say it's like neutrality is like heaven. Or like neutrality is like the perfect abode. But I'll tell you, freedom lives to see its potential.